this is Ava from Soul GPS. Welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to do a bit of a Q&A session with you. I have been getting quite a bit of questions, and I generally what I like to do is kind of bundle them into a video and create more of like a generic question and ask it. But in this case, I'm going to do something similar, but I'm actually going to read you a couple of questions which I believe are related, and they deal with the idea, what do I do? You know, what are some of the first things that I do once I found out what's happening, the feeling of isolation that ensues, the feeling of helplessness, the feeling of utter despair. You know, like so many people just feel like they're on the brink of completely falling apart, and I can so relate because I've been there. You know, especially when your family begins to turn against you and you start to find out that there's no one really there for you, you know, and what to do in those cases. So this is something I wanted to talk about today. So this one came as a comment from Sharon, and she says that my narc ex abused me for 27 years and has turned everyone, including our kids, against me. I'm treated with different standards than anyone else and judged for things I never did. He took everything away, including our businesses of 27 years, put in other people's names and claimed we never had it. He got away with everything, including every one of my lifelong possessions. I can't seem to get help anywhere. Where does a person start? I cannot support myself and gain any ground. Where can I go to start over with nothing and no one to support myself? He even turned my family against me. And I want to tie this with another comment I got from Melissa, and she says, I can't get away from our narcissist. I've tried everything, and now everyone thinks I'm the crazy one. And in all actuality, I'm bipolar, but I have had credits from school, and I enjoy helping others. I want to save the world, but how can I do it when I can't even save myself, right? So please help, this is killing me. So I get a lot of these questions, and I feel really bad because I'm like one person. I love to answer them all and reach out to all of you guys. So slowly, I will try to answer as many of them as I can. So first of all, what I want to say to both of these ladies and anyone else, you know, who is going through this right now, who's struggling, that you are incredibly brave. You are incredibly courageous for even recognizing, you know, what's been going on and seeing the dysfunction. Usually the dysfunction goes on until one person, like, either things get really bad, but in either case, it's usually the target, the victim that then becomes the thriver, the victorious, victim into victor. Oh, there we go. That's how it goes. But the path there is really, you know, it's turbulent. But, you know, it usually goes that way, that it just gets worse and worse until one of the people wakes up, and it's usually the target. It's usually the victim. And so what do you do then? You know, and usually, like, the moment you call it out, especially if you call it out towards this person, they turn vicious, absolutely vicious. So one thing I want to say right off the bat here is that if you're suspecting, you know, or if you have plenty proof, you know, your gut is telling you, get out, this is wrong, do not share your plans with the abuser. Do not tell them, oh, if you continue behaving like this, I'm going to leave you. That's like the worst thing you can say. Or you're a narcissist, you're a psychopath, I'm going to report you. Don't do that. You know, cluster Bs. This is one of those people with disorders who just cannot accept their disorder. They will not do anything generally about it. They're going to argue you to death, like literally, in order to, you know, not take on the responsibility, to deny that there's anything wrong. Worse, they're gonna go out of their way, and they have so many tricks up their sleeve to turn things against you and turn it on its head and say that it's you and you've been doing this, it's all your fault and you fucked up, not them. So be really wary of that. So ideally, especially if you're dealing with a covert person, have a covert plan. Do not share it with anyone. So what do you do? Like the step number one, and I'm going to broaden this question, ladies, both Melissa and what was the other person's name? I'm sorry, I'm skipping around so much. Melissa and Sharon. So I'm gonna like skip around a little bit and open things up so that it can be also applicable to other people. But you know, if you are still in contact with this person, You need to separate yourself. You need to find a safe haven for yourself so that you can begin to heal and begin to turn your life around. It's kind of like, I've been recently watching this really cool series called The Broken Brain. It's by Dr. Hyman. I highly recommend his work. And he is a pioneer in functional medicine. And they talk about, how people with all these different chronic diseases who basically go into neurologists, which is who these people are. They go there and they're seeking, help with the brain. They're forgetting. They have ADD. They have this, all of these these are symptoms of something very deep and functional going wrong with that whole body. So one of the first things you want to do is find out what is wrong. And once you find out what is wrong, stop doing what's been causing these symptoms. So in this case, usually it starts with the diet. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm going to be talking about this in this video quite a bit. This might be another one of my long videos, but basically, so all the doctors tell you the same thing. They're gonna say if something is causing you pain, if something's causing you ache, if something is destroying you, you want to cut that thing off. If you have peanut allergies, you eat a peanut and then you swell up, your body gets covered with hives. You can't eat peanuts. If you are around a nuclear waste facility and you find yourself having all sorts of symptoms related to radiation, you gotta have to move. You're gonna have to do all these things. But before you even start treatment, you have to cut something off. If you're allergic to milk, like I am, don't eat milk. Otherwise, I become like a different person, if I take dairy. So it is so crucial that we get rid of the cause. And in this case, the cause is a person. It's a toxic person who is destroying our lives from the inside out. It's like the abuse. The weird thing about this abuse is that it's first on the outside. Then we let it in. They look for a way through the cell wall to get inside. They get in. And then eventually, even if they're not around, we're still abusing ourselves. We're still doing things that are abusive to ourselves, which further degrades our life. So step number one is to get away to the degree that you can. Ideally, complete no contact. Cut yourself off. Even move to another town if you need to. Or if you want to, prove yourself, your warrior spirit. Stand your ground. Don't let them interfere in your space. Block them on everything you can, and just get away. Like, this is something I wasn't able to do. I needed to get away as far as I can, to the other side of the world, literally, because I was so intensely traumatized. So whatever works for you, you're gonna have to do that. So now, number two is be aware of smear campaign. This is something that both of the ladies, Melissa and Sharon, say, and I hear that a lot. Family turning against you. This person has such a gift of gab. They're such storytellers and story weavers, and oftentimes, even if they especially if they have sociopathic tendencies, they would have planned things and plant seeds along the way, so that later, once you pull the trigger and leave, for instance, it's your action can generate this cascading effect on, see what she did, see what this person did, it's all their fault. So be aware of that. And they're gonna talk shit about you because they have their ego to protect. That's the only thing that they really have, is their fake, false, overinflated, super grandiose, or poor me, depending on where they are, and their dysfunction thing, their persona. And especially if you're dealing with the poor me personalities, the coverts, oh my God, do I know about that? What they do is they're going to turn you into an absolute monster, how you've just hurt them, you've been terrible to the kids, and to them, and they're suffering as a result, and this and that. And so they just have a way of doing that. But listen, if your so-called friends fall for that story, they're not your real friends. So it could be a form of a test. Or if sometimes, it can happen for a while, it might take some time where these so-called friends will turn against you or will move away from you, will not be there supporting you, but then later on they will come back and they'll say, oh my God, you were so right, I am so sorry. And unfortunately, sometimes it just can take a while before it gets to that point. And of course, you're not supposed to just sit there and wait for that and let your life go to waste. You're supposed to take action now and take this opportunity as a way to change your life around. So use this as a test. Now, if you're still in the relationship with this person. Like I was saying earlier, make a plan. This is going to be a very complicated situation. Make a plan, make it a secret plan. Do not share it with everyone. So this is a point in which it's kind of like a Tough Mudder marathon. I don't know if you've ever heard about those. You know, it's like you go on this like obstacle course and you're in mud, and it's like it's super difficult as you're going through this. This is what learning about narcissistic abuse is, or it's like jumping off a cliff and growing your wings on the way down and trusting you're gonna make it, because you will make it. Like if you do the right things, and the right things are basically come down to no contact or as low contact as you can, the truth, learning the truth, you know, remembering who that person is so that they don't have a way to re-traumatize you and keep you in the trauma bond, keeping yourself safe, getting away to a safe place, self-care, absolutely radical self-care, learning to take care of yourself, and then digging down into the causes, what happened, why you did that, and then really focusing on your dreams, on your purpose, and moving forward. You know, basically that's the roadmap, more or less. But it's going to take you time, so don't pressure yourself, don't push yourself. It's like first things first, and don't worry about what's next. You know, just focus on what's right before you. And the most important thing is to get yourself safe, get your kids safe. You know, if the situation involves kids. Now, I don't have children, so it's really difficult for me to like really give you advice that's, you know, straight from experience. Obviously, I can't do that. But based on the stories I have heard, based on the things I have read, I would say that what I would do, at least, especially, I actually did that when I was dealing with a sociopathic boss, is I was documenting things, you know, I was writing things down, because I wasn't sure for a while, like, who is this person? Like, is it me or is it them? So I would write down instances and have like a journal dedicated to that. And so later on, it was really much easier for me when I was giving my, my resignation, and it was like worse than an interview. Like normally you just say, I'm done, right? And you wrap things up. In my case, like a 2-hour conversation with my ex-boss, crying because of how much I was hurting him. And I had to have like all these notes handy to say, you know, this is what happened. I actually shouldn't have even done that now in retrospect. But it was helpful. It was helpful to keep me on track and to understand that I was doing the right thing. And this could be also helpful in court if you're fighting for custody with your kids, to have, you know, all of these things documented, like what did the mother or the father do, you know, how did they treat the kids, were they verbally, physically, emotionally abusive, you know, if so, how were they, you know, giving the kids time out or locking them up for no apparent reason, were they not, you know, giving them, you know, access to meals, gosh, I don't know, you know, or were they punishing them in a way that wasn't right? You know, were the kids denied therapy, you know, or some form of an aid in school, anything and everything like that, you know, did you notice bruises, scratches on their bodies, were their clothes dirty, you know, when you were away, or, you know, stuff like that. Like write those things down, especially if you notice that it's an abnormal situation, you know, that shouldn't be that way. So really remember to take care of you, because the kids will benefit if the mother or the father, whoever is the target in this case, in this relationship, is the one suffering and kids are involved. Take care of yourself so you're strong enough to then take care of them. It's back to the airplane analogy, you know, the masks drops, put it on you first, then put it on your loved one or somebody else who can help. Save money. Like, this is so important. So many stories I hear where people are trapped for years and years and years in toxic relationships, and they don't leave because they don't have the money. Like, if you already are starting to put together a plan and you don't have that in place, start putting away money as soon as you can. You know, just like a little extra money. You may have some cash floating here and there. Like, stuff it away, put it away. And every time you get change from your groceries, you know, take $20 here, $20 there, or whatever currency you're dealing with. Put it away, put it away. Even if you're able to only save like $1,000, that might be just enough, you know, to pay for like a shelter or an Airbnb or a hotel or something, just to get away for a couple of weeks and be able to get a new job, for instance, or move to another town, or get on a plane ticket to be with a friend. Whatever it may be, like having that, it could be like, that could be just the enough. Like, in the universe usually, you know, comes to rescue. Once we make a big decision like that, once we make a big plan to shift away, move away from abuse, we will ride on that current of help, and there will be assistance. But the key is just to get yourself enough stuff going for yourself so that you are confident enough and you feel like it's okay to take that first, most crucial often step to step out of that terrible situation. So let's see what else. Oh, another technique, I call it appease and withdraw. You might want to use, especially if you're just thinking about leaving and you don't feel like you have much support and you have to deal with the abuser. Is that something I did actually the last night with my abuser, is when I knew that things were getting really, really dangerous, but because it was the middle of the night and I wasn't really in condition to drive and get away, I wanted to get to the morning. And so what I would do is like when he would rage or cry or whatever, I would hold his hand and try to like appease him and agree with him and say, I hear you, I understand, I'm sorry, just so he would let me sleep. But of course it never got to that point. Some of you may know my story. I had to, drive at 2 a.m, like after having had almost no sleep for 24 hours or more, been just brutally emotionally assaulted from every side and direction, and almost physically assaulted too. Actually, not almost, but physically assaulted, and I had to run anyway. Anyway, enough about me. This is about you right now, although I know that our stories are relatable. But basically, that's what you want to do. Is you don't want to, you want to do anything it takes to keep yourself sane and safe, as Dana says it. So, so don't berate yourself for going along with it for a time. If it calms him or her down, just, act it out, do whatever it takes, and then withdraw and execute in the moment that you feel is the best, most beneficial, or just the right opening at the time for yourself to do that. If you feel threatened, involve the police. This is what they're here for. They're here to protect us. Of course, there's a lot of reports of the police doing things that are not cool and mistreating people and so on. But in most cases, when it comes to domestic abuse, they do show up. They can help you with putting together a restraining order and so on. So again, if you feel threatened, contact the authorities. Like, don't be shy. If your life depends on it, the life of your loved ones. Next one is boundaries, and namely gray rock. Again, if you're still with that person in their vicinity, just learn to, like, on one hand you want to do the appease, withdraw, but then in other situations it might be better to just completely not engage emotionally, and just like have whatever exchange you need and then like move away as soon as you can. So no emotional involvement. It's kind of like getting a black belt in boundaries. And that's something I have been forced to be doing recently. It's just like things have gotten really heated up in my life, and it's just like there's just all these assaults coming from every direction, and I'm just like, I've developed this boundary called none of my concern, and it's like a mantra now, and I just keep saying, like, I keep visualizing these thoughts, and because I'm getting these thoughts even if the abusers are not around, they're still in my head. So I identify them and I kind of visualize pushing them away to like a boundary, like a bubble that I have around myself, pushing them right outside that boundary and saying, this is none of my concern. You deal with it. This is not my concern. Somebody's weeping and having a hard time because they need my help and need me to do stuff for them. I have stuff to do too. You're not really suffering. This is a game. This is none of my concern. You deal with it. It's just one way I learned to deal with it lately. So if your ex does get shared custody with your kids, what do you do then? Well, what you want to do is you want to keep a close eye, of course, on the kid, communicate with them. I wouldn't say negative things necessarily about the father or the mother, because you don't want to create this parental alienation thing. But you do want to, and it's just such a weird thing because, they're staying with the monster and you can't do much about it. It must be really difficult. So, wow. But most important thing is to have an open communication channel with your child so they can tell you when things go wrong, and you can have, you can tell them the truth. Like, the worst thing you can do, and of course there's some things you need to like PG down, so you don't want to there's certain things that may be inappropriate depending on the child's age to tell them. But if you're suffering and if you're hurting or they're hurting or there's like, be open and honest about it with each other. Don't pretend that things are fine when they're not, because that's going to degrade the child's sense of being intuitive with themselves, because they can tell when things are going bad, when things are wrong. So don't deny their reality by trying to make things better, because that doesn't help. Like, it's better to just like listen and really be there to the best way that you can and offer your own, version, your own opinion and your own sentiment about the situation. And that's going to only get you guys closer with each other. So that must be really difficult, but don't pretend things are well when they're not. So in the instance of, I believe, Sharon, when she had mentioned, that this person basically came in, usurped her life of 27 years, denied that she owned anything, took her prized possessions from her. Sometimes it's better to let go. I mean, you're going to have to decide, is it worth fighting for this? Is it worth your time and your sanity? Or is it better to just let it go? I have lost things in my life, like a couple of times, completely. I mean, my life was reduced down to a suitcase. And you know what? I actually got to enjoy it. I've become a minimalist. Like what you see behind me on that bookshelf, that's pretty much all the books I own at this point. Everything else is electronic. And I have a couple suitcases worth of clothes and some supplements and some lotions and pencils and journals and my computer. And that's really it. That's all I own. And it just makes life so much easier for my traveling, for the things I'm going to do. And you're in this transition now, both of you ladies, and many of you probably listening might be in this stage of transition. It's like this bridge of transition, I call it. It's a really foggy place where you leave what's familiar and you're on your way towards something that is new, but you don't yet know what that is. And it's going to be really up to you in many ways what that's going to be. Here's where we're talking about law of attraction. I made a video about that. It's a thing that's real. It really works, but we need to take action. We need to take steps towards it. So we first began by shifting the way we feel. How do we shift the way we feel? We practice self-care. We focus on bringing the love within and evoking that. Now that might take a while. That might take months. That might take even years, because if we have a lot of abuse that we've internalized, getting rid of that self-critic, that person who tells us that we deserved it or that it makes us second guess ourselves, that thing is going to take a while to eradicate. So first that has to go. Then we have to start focusing on the future and believing in it, believing it's possible, and then taking one step at a time towards that happening. And there's so many shifts that are happening in our earth today, in the world, that it's like the feedback loops are speeding up and things are happening faster. It's like I feel like relationships are falling apart faster, but I also feel like people are healing faster. So it's like whatever you put your attention on is going to grow. So if you put your attention on really healing yourself and really projecting your desires towards a beautiful future, then you're going to move there faster. So just want to put that out there. So sometimes it might be better to shed that weight, to let go of the past, to let go of the things. And these are just things. We're going to have to leave them here anyway once we pass to, other better places, hopefully, into another world. And I actually made a video about that a little bit too. I felt like I was able to have a spiritual connection with my father passing, and I got a glimpse of the other world. I should maybe make a video about that that's more explicit. But my message here is that it's going to be fine. Like if you did well in this life, you're going to do great, as the soul passes on. But this is not what this is about. The idea is basically shed your weight here so that you have a new start. So you have a fresh start. So you're able to navigate into this new life lightly. I mean, imagine if you're bringing all of that baggage with you and you're standing on that shaky bridge of transition, it's kind of like a suspension bridge between two cliffs. It's going to get more difficult to make your steps. Now, the lighter you are, the less you have, the more you can liquidate in a way. Maybe you're going to end up living on a tropical island, and spending your days in a bikini on the beach. I mean, who knows what awaits you? So it might be better to just let it go. What else? And of course, trust that your life will be replenished with bounty. You will get what you need soon enough. So this is, you're going to have to redo your life from scratch in a way. So this is what this is about. Like a hurricane blows through, you just want to keep your essentials and let the rest go. And the next thing that's really important, I would say for both of you ladies, is to, and everyone else watching, is to rewire your brain with newness, with new things. So I've talked about neuroplasticity in some of my other videos, where it's been scientifically proven that our brains change all the time. And when we go to trauma, of course, it's going to have a very deep negative effect. I wouldn't say that so much the trauma of leaving, although that can be really intense, but what's worse is the acute, the acute is the leaving, the trauma of leaving and changing rapidly, but it's the chronic abuse that was going on for a long time. That's what really damaged our brain. So it's kind of like goes chronic, then it's like acute, life blown into pieces, and then we're going to put our life back together. And one sure way of doing it faster and better, stronger, is to expose yourself to new things, so you don't ruminate on the past, and you can faster break the trauma bond. What do? There might be a time of a bit of a period of self-isolation when you need to withdraw in order to lick your wounds and take good care of yourself. So you don't want that to necessarily prolong for too long, although for some of you, everyone's going to be different. For some of you, being alone might be just the best thing ever, for a while. Now, bringing up loneliness here a little bit. So loneliness is a state of mind. It's not a physical state. Sometimes we may be alone but not feel lonely. There are people who absolutely love, they're looking for that place in the mountaintop, to be away and to just be with themselves, because they've been all their life, they lived for other people, and they're like, oh my God, what about me? Finally, I get to be there for me. It all is contingent upon the quality of your inner dialogue. If your inner dialogue is positive, if you surround yourself with positive messages, positive books, positive thoughts, special positive thoughts, and eradicate the bad stuff, then you will enjoy being by yourself. If your inner dialogue is negative and it's abusive, then it's going to be much more difficult. So you want to do things in order to prevent that and break those cycles. So one thing you can do is find yourself a self-care tribe. So this may just be one person, it can be a handful, it can be an online community. Like one of the first things, join an online community. I know that Dana Morningstar, she's fabulous here on YouTube. I'm sure many of you have heard of her. She has Thrive After Abuse, phenomenal support group, and they're absolutely more. So you want to connect with other people who are going through this, because they will understand you, whereas the average person on the street may not know what you're going through, and in fact they may, their stance might re-traumatize you, because they will be like, what are you talking about? It makes no sense, and they will invalidate you. You need validation. At the same time, you might want to open up to other things, like go to bookstore events, for instance. I'm a huge fan of writers, and there are oftentimes free events when you can just unplug for a moment from the process and just listen to somebody, and be amongst people, smart people, asking questions and talking about interesting issues. So look at the calendar event of your local bookstores. As also, you may want to check out the 12-step program. You may not be an addict or an alcoholic, but many of us, myself included, I was a love addict, and my addiction was that I was always looking for other people to validate me, for boyfriends to save me and rescue me from, this void that I was feeling inside because of my traumatic childhood. And I wished when I was back in the US that I went to CODA meetings. CODA is like 12-step for codependence. I know a friend of mine who had been, and she said it was fantastic and changed her life. And pretty shortly after, she literally did a 180 degree and married this awesome guy. And now she's, she has a great life. And I didn't even know that that's what she did until later. She told me, oh yeah, I was in this really terrible relationship, and that I knew, but then I didn't know she went to CODA meetings and, really took her life back in her hands, and she's doing great right now. So that might be something to check out. Also just movement, yoga, hiking, going to a gym, connecting with other people who are into that, going to potlucks. Meetup has a lot of potlucks. I'm very much into like vegan, raw food stuff. I love doing that personally. And there are oftentimes, other people who are doing that, who are putting these events in cities. recently, actually, I also heard of this other thing. I think Airbnb is doing that too. I forgot the name of this particular website, but when I look for it, and I will link it down below, it is like an Airbnb, but what it is that these are events in cities. So you can go to like a chef. I think they're very big on chefs. You can go to a private house of a chef, a famous chef in the city, and you pay money to both eat the food and also prepare it. So the chef is gonna like instruct 12 people or so. They're gonna all like chop and cut the veggies and the food and whatever, and at the end you'll share a feast together. And it's such a cool thing, and it's not very expensive. And I know big cities are doing that right now. San Francisco, LA, Barcelona, London, like they're all over the place. And it could be just a really cool thing to do. Traveling also, you know, huge thing. That's what saved me, I think. What helped me really move forward is going to new places, building these new neural connections by creating new experiences. And doing that. So check that out. Sign up for a good workshop, and then go into nature. You know, go walking in nature. It can be so calming and healing. And the final thing I wrote down would be super helpful, especially for people like ourselves who have been targeted by those nasty monsters, is take a self-defense class. Because when we feel physically stronger and we know how to defend ourselves physically, that can also really translate into higher self-confidence within. So check that out. So, and I would go back to, for both of you, Sharon and Melissa, if you feel like this is absolutely killing you, you don't know what to do with yourself right now, you're just falling and falling and falling into this pit of despair, go back to the fundamentals. And there are 3 fundamentals, and I want to do a course soon that I'll put on my website for you guys, and it's going to really go deep into this. And the 3 fundamentals are, fundamental number 1, and there's a reason why they go in this order, is food. Really go back to pay attention to your diet, because oftentimes what we eat is going to determine how we feel. If our gut is plugged up, if we've been eating really processed, unhealthy foods, high sugar can create a lot of fog. If the quality of our protein is really bad and low, it's better to eat less but of higher quality than to eat a lot bad quality food. I mean, like, obviously, right? But I started making, like, in the last 4 days, I made these big changes in my life, because I have been, again, like I was telling you, spiraling into some familial stuff, and I've been feeling weak and just easy to push my buttons. So I'm like, okay, I gotta get strong again. So I started making green smoothies. I got myself some green powder, and I'm making one of my new favorite smoothies is like a banana with pear and some flax, green powder, and kale, and blend all of that up with some water and drink that every morning. I mean, it's so nice. And then do some yoga, do some stretching. I've been running to, just being in nature, breathing in a lot of oxygen. Sometimes it's when we're going through this, it's so easy to breathe shallow and let the stress get to us. You want to breathe deeply. And if the crying spells are coming over you, that's good. That's crying. Notice that when we're sobbing and when we're laughing, it's the same type of thing. It's like shaking. I talk about that in my SOS program. You might want to check out on my website. It's free. So it's the shaking, shaking your body off of this kind of excess energy that can get stuck in us. So that's really good to do. So the fundamentals are food, number 1, number 2, rest, and number 3, exercise. And let me tell you, exercise, oftentimes, while we dread it, it comes naturally once we clean up our diets and once we get an adequate amount of sleep. And oftentimes our quality sleep, if we've had issues with sleeping, and I oftentimes get these insomnia moments where I just can't sleep. But I notice when I eat better, I sleep better. And when I eat better and then I sleep better, then I want to work out. I have energy in my body. It's like, okay, let's do something, right? So it's like a chain reaction. So fundamentals. Get your vitamins, get your omega-3s, for the brain, all sorts of good brain food is so important. It's going to help you heal faster and get over this relationship much faster. So remember, just to recap real quick, create safe space for yourself. That's number 1. Get away from the abuser. Cut them out if you possibly can. Practice radical self-care. Eat well. Breathe deeply. Exercise. Isolate for a while. It's okay. You're not going to die. I promise you. Sometimes it's best to be away from everyone than it is to continue going through re-triggering and putting yourself through post-traumatic, stress, flashbacks and so on. Step back, read, educate yourself, and then begin to form new memory pathways. I'm kind of like giving you a whole program here, but it's great. I hope this helps, because that's what I did, and that's what helped me. So do new things and have faith that things are going to be better, because I promise you, things are going to get better. If you stick with it, if you stay true to yourself, your life is going to be even better than it was before the abuse. Because before the abuse, remember, we were in a fog. We were operating out of unconscious patterns. This is an opportunity to do a 180 and begin to build our life consciously. And you got to give yourself time. It's not going to happen overnight. But one step after the other, things will add up. And before you know it, you're going to find yourself living a beautiful life. And I want you to write to me then as well. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you all the best. And I'll see you next time. Ciao.